Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talking Data Equity for Friday, February 6th. My name is Heather Kraus, and I'm a mathematical statistician, and I'm the host of the sessions that you have found your way to, Talking Data Equity. And Talking Data Equity is an informal, drop-in, no charge sessions that we run most Fridays, sponsored by my small business called We All Count. And We All Count is a small consultancy that builds tools and does trainings for anybody around the world that is trying to do data work that actually aligns with and supports the people that they care about. So we're very, very happy that you found your way here. We run these most Fridays. The Zoom link has been the same for 5 years, and we've avoided Zoom trolls for all those 5 years. So we'd like to keep it that way. And if you would ever like to come back now that you found your way here, or if you're a regular, I just put a link in the chat that shows you where you can look, the Data Equity, Talking Data Equity homepage. We list upcoming speakers, we list topics. Sometimes we have resource shares or Ask Me Anythings. You can always find out what's going on at Talking Data Equity at that link and decide if you'd like to attend live or not. And if you would like to attend but can't attend live, we do make recordings and we share the recordings and all the resources we discuss in our data equity forum. And I just put the link to that in the chat as well. So you can always just find your way over to that. We've been doing this, as I said, for about 5 years. So we have lots and lots of recordings on lots of topics. So feel free to take advantage of that. I'm going to introduce you to some very exciting special guests today. Before I do that, quick reminder that we run this as a Zoom meeting, which means you have control over your own video and your own microphone and your own screen name. And we do ask that you keep your microphone turned off for the first part of Talking Data Equity while our presenters share the tools and share some stories. Feel free to use the Zoom chat at any point to share reflections, question and answers, and connecting with me or your fellow participants and our speakers, of course. And then if there's time at the end, that's the time to turn your microphone on and we'll have a live discussion and Q&A. All right, I think that's enough housekeeping from me. Let me introduce you to two very cool people that I am very excited to hear from today. I've been a longtime fan of all their work. We have Amy Hawn Nelson. And Amy is a research faculty and the director of training and technical assistance for Actionable Intelligence for Social Policy, which is an initiative at the University of Pennsylvania that helps state and local governments collaborate and responsibly use data to improve lives. And Dr. Nelson is a nationally recognized expert on data governance and an engaged community researcher. And Isabel Rose Algrant is the Assistant Director of Training and Technical Assistance also at AISP. And she works to create sustainable data governance, centering the community voice, especially for those most marginalized. And before joining AISP, she taught eighth grade math and science at the Dwight Englewood School, which is so, so cool. And she has gotten up at like, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning to be with us live at noon, something like that. So thank you both for joining. We are so, so happy that you're here. And let me turn it over to the two of you. Thank you for coming.
Amazing. I'm going to share my screen and get started here. It is 7 a.m., so it's actually pretty reasonable timing, but I'm very happy to be here with you all today. I'm Isabel, as mentioned before. I'm here with Amy, and we're going to talk about our toolkit for centering racial equity throughout data integration. We will share these slides at the end, and we have this little please feel free to use with attribution thing. All of these are tools that you should use and take advantage of, share, whatever. We just ask that you keep our logo on here because this is all public, but we do like credit for the work that we do. Thank you. So just to start off, in the chat, we have this little spectrum here. How do the words data equity make you feel right now? This can be how you feel in general about them. This can be how you feel at this particular moment that we're living in. Um, You can be somewhere on the spectrum. You can just give your Winnie the Pooh character, whatever makes you happy. Again, Amy and I were both middle school teachers, so we will be asking you to interact with us, so please don't be
Mm.
shy.
And silence does not scare us.
It
So
does not.
that's okay too.
Seeing some Tiggers.
Hmm. We do a lot with legal counsel, so there's quite a bit of Eeyores in some of the audiences we're in. Glad we're mostly Tigger here.
Yeah, I'm seeing some piglets too. Fair
That's
enough.
good. That's good. That just means you're paying attention. Yeah. Yeah, that's true, Nick. Yeah. All right.
And as you're thinking about this, which statement best describes you as you're thinking about data equity, right? You obsessed with data equity principles? Is this all you ever think about, like Amy and I? Are you invested, learning, which we also love, or becoming aware? Feel free to drop your response in the chat. We just like to know where we're coming from. Okay, I'm seeing invested. Love that. Makes sense based on the crowd. Obsessed. Very good. Great. Y'all are our people. We love to see that.
Mm.
Keep feel free to keep putting these in. I just would love to give us time for conversations. I'm going to keep moving. This is our agenda for today. We're going to do an introduction to AISP and our toolkit. We're going to talk about the 4 questions to evaluate risk versus benefit. We'll have another activity here, so don't worry. We're going to talk about data governance as the foundation to centering racial equity. We'll do a Q&A and a wrap up. So we've got a lot to jam pack in here, but again, these slides are for you, so we wanted to make sure that they have as much information as possible for you to go to later. I think that means I'm passing it to Amy.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Hawn Nelson. It is lovely to be here with everyone. So we're just going to do a quick introduction. So AISP, we like to describe us as a small but mighty organization. There are 6 of us at the current moment at Penn, and our core work is to convene a network of these things we call integrated data systems. And our focus is on strong data governance and routine use of cross-sector data. So um, we love certain things that other people don't pay much attention to is another way to think about it. So our core work is a peer network. We write a lot of things. We'll drop some of those resources in the chat as we discuss today. We do a lot of trainings, consultations, some advocacy and comms, and then a lot of actionable research. So we'll talk more about that as well. The main thing to know is we are US based and singularly focused on the ethical use of public sector data. So with our historical context in the US, that means that we must center racial equity because otherwise you really can't talk about ethics without centering that. We like to define things. So part of us being academia adjacent. So this is the definition of racial equity that we commonly use. We think about it as it's a noun and a verb. So you'll hear us use it in that way throughout our time together today. We also like to think about racial equity in the work here as being at multiple different levels. So we have to work at the individual level while working at the organizational and institutional level, while also working at the macro level. So that's something else. We'll kind of go back and forth interchangeably. While we do appreciate a systems view, we also are really, we have a core belief that individual actions matter. And I can tell that matters for everyone on this call as well, or you wouldn't be such a committed member of this community. So we'll be talking about the 3 different levels through our time today. We also just want to acknowledge that, or you know what? Isabel is going to acknowledge this. Almost took her slide.
Okay. No, that's okay. It is. Go back and forth. Yeah, we want to acknowledge that we're coming to you in very bizarre times. I think when we put out the first
Mhm.
toolkit, it was in 2020. It was kind of right on the heels of the murder of George Floyd. It felt very in line with what the public was thinking about and feeling. And then we put out this second version of the toolkit in February 2025, which was just a very different time to be thinking about equity. And so as we were trying to put this out into the world, we really wanted to ground ourselves in the fact that you all are coming to this work in a very different place, and this work is in a very different place right now. And none of us could say that better than Tema Okun, just that those of us committed to the work, to racial justice, democracy, mutual well-being know that safety does not come from hatred. It comes from solidarity with all who yearn for a world centered on mutual care and concern. We just want to put that out there and say that we ground ourselves in this, right? We believe in all of these things. And our toolkit, we can speak for our work. We did not change a single word based on all of the things that are restricted in the federal government world. But that's because we had the resources to be able to do that. And so we want to say that nothing has changed here. We are still doing the work and pushing forward, even in uncertain times. And we really appreciate you all doing the same. And so this is what the work is, or what this work is, our sort of racial equity suite. It is on our website. It's on the Centering Equity page. What is it? It is positive and problematic practices for each stage of the data lifecycle. It is works in action, which is what we call our exemplars. It is a name really dedicated to what we think about as data humility, but that every time we ask somebody about doing this work and to use them as an exemplar, they were like, but we still have so much to do. We're not done. We're not ready. So this is really a testament to the work being done and continuous improvement, but really great work nonetheless. And then this year, well, 2025 is no longer this year. Last year, we also put out our workbook, Your Journey to Centering Racial Equity, with a lot of activities based on decades of TA and also our equity and practice learning community. It is literally just a Google Slides presentation for you all to use as you wish, which is super exciting to have out here. So again, in the chat if you want to, but this is what we call the data life cycle. It's how we organize our toolkit. It goes from planning all the way through reporting and dissemination and back again. As you're looking at this, if you sort of have a place where you think your work falls in, feel free to drop in the chat what stage of the data life cycle your work focuses on. You can do that. I'm going to keep moving as we're thinking about this. Cool. Seeing analysis.
Yeah,
and this is, oh yeah,
sorry, Isabel, can we pause there? I do want to
absolutely.
say, okay, I see analysis, which is great. And I love that a lot of the responses coming in are all of them. That's something we don't always see. So yay. And so we have planning, analysis. Okay. Excellent. We are going to practice these muscles. In just a minute, we're going to go into a lot of activity. So thank you for sharing that. Okay. Sorry to interrupt, Isabel.
Amazing. No, absolutely. I'm glad we got more answers in the chat than I was expecting. Amazing. And this is sort of our central metaphor here. As railroads and highways both developed and decimated communities, so too can data infrastructure. We can keep going the way we've been going and build things with no regard for the world around us, or we can be very intentional and think about racial equity as we construct the data infrastructure, which we firmly believe is the infrastructure project of our century. So that's just something to ground ourselves in as we think about the work that we do. I think this is you, Amy.
Yeah, and so this we just I have a feeling there's a bunch of process people on the call. So and I love that I see a bunch of evaluators in the chat. So this is for you evaluators. So the process here, this toolkit was first published in 2020, but this was a project that came out of, it was a participatory action research project where members of our network came to us and said, hey, we've got this problem. We have all this data. Equity is a core principle of ours, but we really aren't centering it. Like we are not doing the things around equity that we want to. Who is doing that well? And we were like, oh, that's a great question. In 2018, we know that there are like pockets, there are bright spots, right? But we don't know. So we committed to figuring that out and we finally figured out funding like a year or two later, convened a very active work group, and created this PAR project, which is the toolkit. So the document that maybe you've clicked on in the chat by now, and that all the resources, these are collaborative. This is a collaborative process. It's an ongoing process. It's been going on. We still interact almost daily with many members of our work group from 2017 and 2018. So we are presenting the work of many, which I guess is the key thing to remember here. So happy to talk more about process during the Q&A, but we'll keep it rolling for now. So when we published in 2020, we were, as Isabel said earlier, we're really walking with the wind. And then 2025 or 2024 happened, November, and it was like, and suddenly we were walking sometimes against the wind, sometimes felt like we were walking at a wall. But, the work continued. So this is the big shift from 2020 to 2025. We made changes in almost every part of the toolkit. While it's titled the same, they are completely different documents. Um, a lot of contributors. We have 54 what we call works in action. Just for some comparison point, when we first rolled out the 2020 toolkit, we sourced those over the course of about a year, and it took us almost a year to get to 12 works in action. Um, and the second round, we're at 54. So that tells you from 2019 to 2024 what a sea change there was in equity focused data work. So bravo to everyone on this call because you're all part of this. We have like really shifted the field in a beautiful way. So that should be, even though we're hitting a roadblock at the moment, the arc is long, right? And we are full faith that we'll get rolling again. Okay, this next slide is Isabel is going to explain it because this is her brain on a slide. This is not my
This is
brain. Yeah,
This is what I affectionately refer to as my mind palace, as we
yeah.
were putting together the toolkit. But really, what this is the toolkit. I will say we got part of having 110 contributors is we got a lot of feedback, and one of the things came through, and they said, "Could you just for the visual thinkers, which Amy is not, and that's okay. They were like, could you for the visual thinkers put something out that sort of explains the toolkit, like not as a table of contents?" And I said, "Sure, give me 10 minutes." So this is the data lifecycle. And as you can see, every section sort of has a couple of key pieces, which is positive and problematic practices, work in action, and resources. Some have a little bit more based on sort of the work that we do and the examples that we have and the technical assistance that we've done. And I'll talk a little bit more about this as we talk about the updates, but we also kind of added this section above the data lifecycle, as you can see, which is foundations for community engagement. Because as our work group kind of surfaced, not everybody is ready to start engaging community throughout the data lifecycle. And it's very important that you get your house in order and really think about that work before you even get into the sort of data piece of it. So it's just a way to think about it, but this is our toolkit on one slide and also my brain. Um, but really, at the end of the day, centering racial equity is all about sharing power. This is a very cool graphic illustration from our equity and practice learning community. But really, at the core of this is what we're trying to accomplish: is how can we share power with the people represented in the data, which is going to be, again, generally in the United States, but also everywhere, is going to be people who are most marginalized, who have the most to lose by not sharing their information, right? So how can we share power with them in this process and give them a little bit more agency where we can? So we made a lot of updates. As we mentioned, every part of the toolkit was touched, but the big things, first, there's an interactive website, so it's not just a static PDF, although we have lovers of those, so there is a static PDF if you want it, but we also have a paper turn, which you can kind of click through in a different way that lives on our website. The companion workbook, which I mentioned before, filled with activities to jumpstart your work. The Foundations for Community Engagement section, and we want to prepare you all to be doing this work. It is hard. There will be conflict. That's okay. And a lot of examples of people who did that work over the years in between the first toolkit and the second, and for some even longer than that. We also updated, or we added a section on tribal data sovereignty. This was an admitted miss in the first toolkit. Again, a lot of the principles are the same, but in the US, as in Canada, there are different rights that tribes and First Nations people have. We want to make sure that those are highlighted and acknowledged in this space. We admit we are not experts on on that area, but we talk to a lot of people who were. And then artificial intelligence, let's just name the elephant in the room. It is here. There was a massive shift in 2022 around that. We even sort of renamed our section that was called Algorithms and Statistical Tools to Algorithms and Artificial Intelligence, just to reflect sort of where we are as a field right now. Um, I do want to say that we're not technologists, we are not vendors, we're not vendor recommenders, we're not telling you how to use AI necessarily, but we want to put it in the context of the way that we think about data work. And of course, artificial intelligence both runs on data and works with data. And so we sort of wanted to contextualize that within the work that we do. As with everything else, it's moving very quickly. So even the things that we did last year, some of it even feels old at this point, but it's there to support you all in the work that you're doing. Okay, Amy.
All right. So we are going to introduce a tool for everyone to use. This is a tool we use in a lot of our work. We've used it for years. It's very simple and it's intuitive. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. We're going to practice it instead. As a reminder, you will get these slides. So just roll with it. I'm going to roll through this fast and then through the practice, you'll get it. So we like to think of any question around data access and use that you can really guide your thinking around it by asking 4 questions. So is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it a good idea? And then how do we know and who decides? And spoiler alert, the last question is data governance, right? So we are not going to, these slides are here for you, but we're just going to click through them. So click, click, click. Okay. And we're going to pause here. So we are going to do an activity where we are going to ask you to take and I am realizing that we forgot to put numbers in here. So I
No,
apologize
we got
if
it.
this is not accessible for folks.
Got
There
it.
we go. Okay. Thank you. That is a color blindness issue. Okay. So we are going to be walking through these 4 questions. So legal, is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it a good idea? And then how do you know who decides? With examples of open data use. So are we ready? We're going to do this in the chat. So first question is, this is an example on the left. You know what, Isabel, that picture on the right should have been a pop-up.
Yeah, I know. Let me see. I don't know how to hide it at this point.
Okay, well, never mind. It's what sorry, we had a animation fail, but that's okay. So on the left is the map that you're supposed to see first. I didn't catch it when I checked the slides earlier. My
No, that's
bad.
my bad.
So there is a map showing HIV status by zip code on the left. So this is my county. I work for Penn. It is confusing, but I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and have ever since I started working for Penn 9 years ago. So this is my community. This is Charlotte, North Carolina. And this is, our county is quite large, 560 square miles, about 1.2 million people. So it's quite populous, but this is HIV status by zip code. Would you consider this 1, 2, 3, or 4? So high benefit, low risk, and so on. I'm not going to rattle those off. We have 1, 2, 3.
I'm seeing a lot of 2s come in. There are no wrong answers here also.
There are no wrong answers. Yeah.
Yeah. So high risk, high benefit. I'm getting a lot of high risk, high benefit here. Some public health people I'm getting the vibe of.
Okay. So we have lots of 2s. Great. So this map on the right, so a lot of 2s, which tells me that people think it is high risk, but also high benefit, right? So lots of risk, lots of benefit. So this map on the right, which was supposed to be a pop-up, but you saw it in advance, is to show you the racial dynamics of my community. So our demographics we're very segregated racially and socioeconomically. So the darker the color here is, the more white the neighborhood profile area is. So the dark blues, those are majority white areas of town. So knowing this information, does this change your perspective of risk? So we are a highly racially segregated community, largely because of being in the Southern United States and our history. So does that change, or does it leave the same? Are you still a 2? And again, no wrong answers here. Still a 2. Thank you, Giselle. Okay. All right. Okay, great. So does anyone want to see? Do we have to? Yeah, we've got a minute. Anybody want to unmute and briefly say why you think it's high risk, high benefit? Or you can drop in the chat. There are a couple common answers we get to this. Would love to hear what you think. Yes.
Yeah, go
So
for
it
it,
could be
Dennis.
small. Yeah. Yeah. Dennis, jump in.
Yeah, sorry for not being on camera at the moment.
You're
Thanks.
good.
And someone else put it in there as well. I'm a public health guy, and I do not love zip codes one bit. So if you want a census tract, census area, there are other ways to map that. However, so putting that aside, I see that there's the darker areas on the map on the left are correlated with the lighter areas on the right, and that's primarily where you're going to see the concern of where the burden of HIV is, and therefore
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to consider several pieces about how to address that disparity, possibly in inequity.
Great. So I'm hearing like stigmatization risk is a common concern here. You could definitely stigmatize certain neighborhoods with this information. What about the benefit? What is the benefit of having strong geographical spatial understanding of these issues? Yeah, resource allocation, targeted outreach, exactly. So these data can be really helpful for that, for sure. Okay, great. Now that we've used the framework, so let's walk through the framework. Is this legal? Yes, it is. It's very legal. It's already up here, right? This is a public facing dashboard. Is it ethical? Seems like we're in agreement that it is overarching. I didn't see any folks who put it in the red. So is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it a good idea? I think there's some disagreement on that and would prefer it be geocoded in a different way. And then let's see. Then we have how do we know and who decides? So that is also an interesting thing to think about here. I know very much how the data on the right is created. That is an open data dashboard that I can drop the link into in the chat in a moment called the Quality of Life Dashboard, the Quality of Life Explorer. It's a collaboration of the City of Charlotte, County Mecklenburg, and then UNC Charlotte, which is our big university here. It's been around since the 90s. It is a collaborative process. They have a lot of governance around it. The one on the left is an academic paper. So what's the governance on that? I don't know. They didn't tell us, but there is IRB around it. So that would be some level of governance. So, all right, let's go to our next example. All right. So here is a more relevant example to the issues that we are having at this moment in the US. So this is also my neighborhood and my part of town in Charlotte. This is this is using ACS data, so part of the census, American Community Survey data, and they have geocoded a language, the language spoken at home. What do we think about this map at this moment in 2026?
Seeing some fours. People are putting this in the red.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, I'm seeing a two. Four, maybe a two as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. So jump into fours if you wouldn't mind throwing into the chat. That was a pretty quick four. So tell me what you think. Yeah, okay, there we go. Danica dropped it in. So targeting of communities, yes. 100%. Racial profiling is now legal in the United States, and is actively being used. And if anyone saw any news in November, Border Patrol was in Charlotte, and it was exactly these neighborhoods. This is literally these neighborhoods is exactly where they patrolled all day, every day, and where all of our community watches were held. All the schools that were targeted were in these neighborhoods. So they know this data. They have this information. It's also very obvious if you drive around here. If you drive around in our community, a lot of the signs, just even like a block from where I'm sitting right now, are not in English, which is why we live here because we love it. But it makes us a target. So yes to all these things. What would be the benefit? Someone put a 2 in here, and I agree. In other times, this is definitely a 2. So why would this be a 2 in other times, not in 2026? You can give a concrete example. Okay, yeah, emergency preparedness messaging. That's a great one. What's another one? Resource allocation. Exactly. Like what schools need a translator, right? What schools need materials provided in multiple languages. Yeah. Healthcare is a great one. Like our school, where my kids are in a Spanish immersion school, and we have a bilingual staff member where all they do all day is serve as a translator for families, which is a fully staffed position, which is quite cool. So excellent. See, y'all are pros at this. You're so pro that you're ready to do a harder version. So I'm going to kick it to Isabel now, and she is going to talk about risk and benefit with restricted data. So these are data that can be accessed, but with some kind of legal agreement. All right, take it away.
Okay. Yes, I put the categories back in the chat. Again, these are restricted data. So those first two examples we did are open. Anybody can see those things, which again, I think has to influence the way that we think about them. Uh, this is information that you need, again, some sort of legal agreement around. It's not necessarily public. So first example from Philadelphia, which is where I typically am. Um, so this was a project where there was a soda tax in Philadelphia, and they wanted to use it to create more slots in free pre-K. So they created this map and they risk scored different neighborhoods so that they could invest that money into creating more seats in the neighborhoods where kids had the sort of highest risk factors. So think lead exposure, low birth weight, preterm birth, things like that would contribute to these risk scores. What do we think? Again, this is like individual row level data, but it's not publicly accessible. Where did you put this? Also, if people have questions, I can speak a little bit more about the project. Oh, yeah, and you can get into the weeds. So true. Read it.
And I know people have opinions about soda taxes, so we are not debating that right now. We are
Yeah.
debating the use of the data.
Yes, the data integration and the use here.
Yeah. Strong
Yeah,
opinions about soda taxes. We found out.
okay, I'm seeing some ones, I'm seeing some twos. Again, if anyone feels like they want to put some words to this, feel free to.
Great. Might be helpful to talk about, is this legal?
Hmm.
So this is a place where the 4-question framework can be. Yeah, Giselle was thinking exactly where I was. So data security is a huge risk here, right? But Philadelphia actually has a highly developed and well-established integrated data system, and so they have all that figured out. They have routine, like really robust data security, lots of strong legal framework. They've been in some kind of, it's existed in some form since the late 90s. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
Sophia put in the chat, I'd be worried about
yeah.
weaponizing the data too. Yes, any kind of risk scores, that's going to be a risk as well. Again, this is where governance comes in, right? And again, a good
Yeah.
question to be here is how is this data allowed to be used, right? Can CPS access this data? Do they have access to the row level data? Um,
Yeah.
in this case, I believe the answer is no, but Amy might say I'm wrong about that.
The integrated data system had access to the row level data, and then the researchers did not. So the government workers did all the data linkage and integration, and then de-identified the data set. The data set was de-identified when it was provided to research for research use.
Yeah,
Yeah, Danica,
interpretation.
yeah, great one.
Hmm.
Yeah, Yeah. So these data also, because it was part of the integrated data system, has really strong governance around it.
Mm.
Great ones.
Yes, no, these are a lot of really great comments. Again, if you're not looking at the chat, I recommend you read it. There's a lot of really great stuff in there. Again, y'all are our people, which we love to see.
Mhm.
Um, this is an example from the Indiana Management and Performance Hub during the COVID-19 pandemic. Um, this is a public-facing dashboard, but behind the scenes of this, right, what Indiana did is they just randomly distributed a bunch of COVID-19 tests and then collected those results. So instead of just having symptomatic cases, they also had asymptomatic cases to understand where positivity was um, across the state of Indiana. So, again, this is individual row level data, but that is restricted. Not everybody can see that, and it was de-identified and aggregated at the public level. Again, there are a lot of public health folks here, so I would love to hear what you all have to say about this one. Again, feel free to use numbers, but also feel free to use words. This is not an exact science.
Okay, so we have a fully in the green. Yep.
hmm Yeah, seeing lower
All right.
risk, and people are feeling good about this one. Will say this was like a transformative project for the way we were able to manage COVID-19. So, yeah, there were definitely a lot of benefits to this study. Will say when we were on HDRN, somebody pointed out they were like, yeah, this made a lot of sense in the pandemic, but are we still allowed to be doing this? And is it okay now that we're out of it? Do we need to put more restrictions on this? I think the question of time is important here, right? There was a moment when having this kind of data was very beneficial. It helped with vaccine rollout immensely. It helped us understand a lot about spread. Um, but we are in a moment now where having access to sort of individual people's health records just out there is not necessarily what we want to be doing. So I'll name all of those things. Okay. Anyway, thank you all for participating. Feel free to keep putting things in the chat as you think about these. I know that they're big thinkers. Um, So how do we increase benefit and mitigate risk? As we will tell you, there is really no magic answer here. There's no magic bullet. The reason that this toolkit is as long as it is because we can't just tell you how to do this. But
Mhm.
but again, as you've seen here, it's a lot about collaboration and discernment with groups of people, right? Making decisions collectively as much as we can, and thinking through all of these questions. Data governance is the foundation. Data governance, we define it as the people's policies and procedures that support how data are managed, used, and protected. I'm going to throw it to Amy to talk more about that.
Yeah, so I don't think we have like straight technologists on here. We're probably most of us kind of dabble, but a lot of times we interact with folks who are technologists and their core training is in IT. And they hear the words data governance and they think big blue book of knowledge, this book on the left. But we use a much broader definition. And so we think it's really important to call that out explicitly. So when we talk about data governance, we mean talking with people about data. Like if you're not talking with people, it's not data governance. That is probably top down decision making around data, and that's different. So people are the key piece here. We have a quality framework that we use in thinking about this. And you'll notice that the first two are very purposeful. So this is kind of in order, right? So governance is the foundation, that is first. And then you have got to figure out the legal framework for it. And then we talk a lot about technology and then capacity. A lot of capacity is just straight up staffing and like how do you get the work done? And then impact, like what's the so what of everything you're trying to put together. So at the risk of giving you another framework, here is your third framework that we are introducing to you today. Feel free to never think about this again, but we wanted to make sure that you all saw it. All right. The other thing about governance that we just want to make sure everybody knows is the goal is participatory and collaborative governance. We will say that is very hard to do. And most places we work with, it is a goal, but it is aspirational. So the main thing is people talking about governance. If you get to a place where you've got strong participatory structures, especially around folks who are in the data making decision, but that's about the data, that's really the goal that we're trying to get to. We do have a document around this that is linked on that Centering Equity page. It's long form examples of sites in our network who have participatory governance set up and kind of how they went through that process. Again, 4 questions. This is like the main overarching framework. We hope when you leave here today, you'll think, oh, that 4-question framework was quite helpful. And this is really what governance is, right? Governance should be core to the work, and it should be, Isabel, can you get the next slide? So data governance should be, first and foremost, it should be purpose, mission, and vision driven. It should be practical. It shouldn't be crazy complicated. Like, we don't need IRBs stood up everywhere. It should be practical, common sense, simple as it can be, right? Collaborative, transparent, iterative, all these things. These are all aspirational pieces that we wanted to share with you. This is another way that we think about it. Again, if these slides are helpful, they are now yours. We hope you will revisit them after we're done here today. And we'll leave you with a couple suggestions. Pretty much all we do is help people figure out data governance. So we've learned a lot in that process. So what we wanted to leave you with kind of a couple suggestions of where to start. The first place to start is to figure out where data governance processes already exist and then expand them or scale them. We found that most institutions and organizations have some kind of governance in place. They may not call it governance, but it's some kind of shared decision making. It's some kind of people that regularly chat, even if it's around the water cooler, back when we had such things and weren't all remote. Even if it's a Slack thread, there is probably governance in place. So take that, expand it. It doesn't have to be a formal piece at the beginning. Suggestion number 2 is to really be careful about who you're inviting to the decision making and making sure that you have the right people around that virtual table or that hypothetical table, right? We encourage you to be careful about that table. Here's a graphic organizer for those of you who are working on this. Here's one way that we like to help people start thinking about it. So these are all tools that are directly from our workbook that we've shared with you. So again, these are literally slides in a Google slide deck that you can cut and paste into your own work that we hope you will use. So here's another graphic organizer that we have used with permission from another resource that we think is quite good in thinking about like who should be a part of the decision making. And then here's another tool, like how to frame out who should be at the table. Here's another way of thinking about it. Lots of ways. All right. And then third and final suggestion, and then we're going to wrap up a new Q&A. When we get asked, like, how do we move to participatory governance, right? How do we move to governance that goes beyond just a few people, executive level, making decisions? Our answer is always get on this spectrum and move right? So if you are starting out at inform or consult, that's totally fine. Getting to collaborate and defer to will take years of effort. So the key work is to just get on the spectrum somewhere, even if you're starting at inform, and then move right. And again, the citation for this graphic is cited, and we would really encourage you to look at that resource. It's a really great one. All right, and Isabel's going to take us home.
Yeah. So at the end, we're back here at our life cycle. Where do we need to center racial equity? Everywhere. It can be done everywhere. That is the whole point. Again, we have suggestions throughout for different places wherever you come to the work, or if you're all over the work, that's great, as many of you are. Here is a plethora of resources that we have available. Again, you'll have these slides. All of these things are linked. You can see our Centering Racial Equity suite. I do want to flag that we have our federal data response memo You can totally share this with trusted partners. It is not public on our website for reasons that I think are pretty obvious. It is just like a view-only Google Doc because, again, things are changing every day. But if you're thinking about data sharing and data work happening in the US, this is sort of our repository of things. I know the Talking Data Equity Playbook has been a really great resource as well. We have it linked in there too. We're big fans. Also, some of our legal resources are here. If you're thinking about consent or building legal agreements, all of our stuff, all on our website. And so, again, sign up for our newsletter, check out our website. These are our emails. I'm going to stop sharing so we can all look at each other or pretend to look at each other, look at each other's names. But we're here for questions, comments, concerns, whatever.
Thank you so much. That's perfectly timed. I know that you can probably see it in the chat and in all the emoji reactions that really the timing of you sharing this deep, nuanced, thoughtful set of tools with us is uh, so appreciated. I think is the best way to say it. So thank you. And I just want to amplify what Amy and Isabel were saying. If you're in the room live and you want to ask a question, this is your opportunity to turn your microphone on. If you can see the little Zoom hand, you can raise your Zoom hand, but it's also fine if you just turn your microphone on and start talking. And oh, great. Thank you for linking that in the chat, the federal piece, because as you know, we've been talking a lot about that here on Talking Data Equity. And while I wait for other people to raise their hand or put a question in the chat, I'd love to hear if, like, on that federal kind of thread. I know you do a lot of work. That's how I first met you way back, like many years ago, figuring out how to start using equity-based principles and analysis with data that is collected by governments who, whatever their intentions are when they've changed a lot, are essentially almost always collecting data for their good, like for the good of the state, like not state like the geography, but like the state, like a government. And I'd really suggest that people go and check out your toolkit because you have some really practical advice. And one of the things we've been talking about a lot here on Fridays is how much we could depend in the past or thought we could depend on the past in the past on the people who worked for federal governments or state governments to provide a certain level of ethical legal governance around the data sets, that the agreements would be kept, both the legal agreements and the kind of normative agreements. Have you had to change the way that you give governance advice to kind of incorporate this new reality?
Yes. Yeah, that's uh, so the document that I just shared in the chat is literally our response to that. We were within weeks of the new administration or days of I mean, day two after inauguration in 2025, we were fielding like emergency phone calls um, almost daily. And so, in an attempt, because we just didn't have enough hours in the day to give people our thoughts, that is literally where this data response came from. Like, I'll just tell you a little genesis story of this document. It was me fielding emails and taking notes and phone calls. And then I would send everything to Isabel, and Isabel would, like, in her mind palace, get it down on a Google Doc. And then I would just, that was every day for like a couple months. And then now we add to it. Like, I edited it last week or this week because Isabel's been out this week. So like I did a little editing of it this week. But that's literally how it was crafted, of just being on calls all day, problem solving, um, and trying to share information in a trusted format. You'll see in that document, if you open up their different tabs, and there's an entire tab where all it is like guidance for state and local government for safeguarding your data from federal ingestion. And so we have lots of recommendations around that. We, I mean, it's still a weekly, almost every day thing. We get some kind of inquiry from a state or local government, or more and more, not as often, but at the beginning, we were also getting lots of questions from local community-based organizations as well.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you
but I
so
also
much.
want to say, oh yeah, I also want to say that like, and Amy's been pretty clear about this in other spaces as well. Like, while the situation has changed, a lot of our guidance actually hasn't, right? Really good
It hasn't.
governance is theoretically institution proof, right? And again, we're seeing a lot of
Yeah,
ignoring of legal precedent, which is scary in a different way. But ideally, the structures that you put in place are to mitigate misuse and improper ingestion, period. And so no matter what the intentions of the people are in charge, right? And that's why we try to illuminate power structures so that when they change, we can kind of understand where things are going. So a lot's changed and also a lot hasn't, right? And I think
hasn't. Yeah.
yeah. And you can see how important the work is when the chips are really down, which is where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, the four question framework exactly the same. Like none, like we said, there are studying racial equity throughout data integration. We did not change a single word. I would cuss if it were appropriate, but like did not change a word. It's one of those like we're not changing a word. Um, but we are recommending like in certain one-on-one conversations with folks that we know well who have strong data governance. Like we've never recommended data deletion before, and we have some cases where we are. We've never recommended partitioning as much as we are right now. We have even like there's one context or a couple of contexts where our recommendation is our recommendation is always to have data in government because legally you can get better access and better use for it, and the privacy safeguards are stronger historically, right? We've never recommended data be taken out of government until this year, and that makes my heart very sad, but that is the world that we're in. So it's more the technical security that our guidance has changed. None of our governance or legal piece.
Thank you so
And
much for framing it
yeah,
that way. That makes so much sense. Sorry, go ahead.
no, so I just had one more thought. Sorry, as you can tell, this is like all I've done for over a year, and so lots of thinking around it. The other piece that's been really interesting is the sites that have really strong governance in our network that we've worked with for years, they're golden. Like they were the first ones to be like, oh, we already have an escalation protocol for when someone requests data. We already have our, we put it login credentials around our metadata. We it's the places with no data governance where the data is being just slurped up.
That is really, really helpful. And an unpleasant way to get reminded, and frankly, an unjust way. I don't want to, say that this is all the onus of small social organizations to have perfect data governance, of course, because it's not. But it is a really good reminder that these aren't, nice to haves. Hmm.
Yeah, that this period of the work has taught us that like governance is not secondary.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Governance can get very overwhelming very fast, and I'm really, really grateful that the two of you and the team that you work with and all the community partners that you have so generously, amplified, put the work and the guidance down in these really concrete, really usable tools that if you don't have a legal team or an ethicist that you can go to and ask these questions, is this legal? Is this ethical? These tools are really going to help even small organizations kind of figure out how to move forward, how to deal with what they're dealing with right now, and how to protect the people that they care about in the next iteration of data collection, regardless of whether the government decides to act justly or not. So that is a tremendous amount of value. And I'm very, very grateful that you did the work, put it together, made it public, and came and share it with us today. I really, really appreciate it. And I think, out of respect for everybody's time, we will pause things here. And reminder that we will share the links. We will not share the link to that AISP Federal Data Response 2025. We're not going to put that link in
Yeah.
our data equity forum, just to be super clear. Um, but we'll put the rest of the stuff, the rest of the public facing links will be in the data equity forum, so you can find it there. And we are on vacation next week. Data Equity is taking a break, but we're back in 2 weeks with some super special guests that you can check out on the Data Equity page. And I know that everybody here today is dealing with stuff, dealing with personal stuff, dealing with political stuff, dealing with environmental stuff, dealing with social stuff. And so the number one reason we have Talking Data Equity is just to remind you that you're not in this alone and that there are people that are dealing with all those same things as you, maybe in different orders and different intensities from different locations. But we do really care about you and let us know what support you need. And we'll all do our best to be here for you. And take good care of yourselves. You are important and you matter. And take good care of each other. And we will see you 2 weeks from today. All right. Stay in touch. Thanks for coming. Bye. Thanks, Amy and Isabel. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.